Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm gonna talk about the latest episode of Supernatural. A great episode. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break them down. Obviously, we're continuing. Obviously, the boys are still mourning about Mary. Even gathered up hunters who worked with her on this side of things, as well fought Michael in the other world. We even have Bobby popping back up, because of course he would. I'm surprised we didn't see any Catch or anything. Obviously, Catch isn't popping up in the show as frequently. He popped up a little bit, for a little bit, a couple episodes back, but that's about it. But because obviously he fancied Mary a lot too. So, but obviously Bobby and Mary were kind of going so, which is even sadder when you actually think about that, because things were kind of heading in that direction, and they never will. And so obviously Dean's dealing with everything, and obviously there's a difference of opinion about how things should be handled. Like, obviously Sam wants to talk to Dean about it, but Dean's still kind of dealing with everything after losing Mary, because obviously, it's hard enough having lost their mom. They lost her once before. They had her back. They thought they could have that happy ending, and it's no, it was taken from them. Their mom, she's the only, yes, they had this other family, but that, I think, even with situations of having Castiel and Jack for a family, all these other people as a family, it doesn't make up for the fact that your biological family still holds a special place in your heart. They don't have their dad anymore, but at the very least they had their mom again, and it made them feel good after not having her for so long, because they literally grew up their entire lives never having their mom. Sam was only 6 months old when their mom died. Dean was 4. So that's the struggle with that whole situation. Sam didn't know her at all. Dean knew her a little bit from the bits and fragments and memories he had when he was a little kid. So this was their chance to actually get to know their mom, to actually experience having her as a mom, to get to know her and to have her taken away. That's a heavy ass thing to live with. Obviously Castiel's we got to help Jack. You have Bobby being we need to put him down, especially if he doesn't know right from wrong. He's an uncontrollable monster. But that's the thing. Literally, there's literally nothing and no one in existence powerful enough to challenge Jack, especially no hunters. Nothing they throw at him in their hunter bags can do anything. I mean, that's why the battle against Michael took so long. There was no fighting him and his armies of angels, and Jack himself is alone way more powerful than Michael and his army of angels. Because as time goes on, Jack is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger, And so obviously, you have Castiel turning to the one person he can. He goes to heaven to talk to Naomi, but it turns out Naomi got locked up, because it's well, you failed heaven because the empty got here under your watch. We almost all died, and now Duma's in control because she's I'm not really the number one choice, but hey, I'm kind of the only option here. Then it turns into a situation of okay, we need to just guide Jack. If we mold him, we can put him back on the right direction. I mean, look at Dean and Sam. Once again, a situation they're not thinking about. I mean, because the difference is Sam's soul was inside the cage. It wasn't gone. It wasn't burned away. It was still there, trapped in the cage with Michael and Lucifer. But, Dean kind of made adjustments to the fact that Sam didn't have a soul. I mean, he had to kind of work around that, but it's maybe we could do it. It seems like Castiel was essentially trying to do that. Duma, on the other hand, went crazy with it, where she's basically going all Old Testament on people's asses by trying to take Jack and molding him of oh yeah, God used to strike down those who, turned their eye against heaven, heretics and whatnot. So for her, it's she's trying to bring it back. It's Jack, you could save the world, you could save heaven, you could do so much good. And you know what? Sam and Dean, I think that'd make them really happy. Obviously, playing on the fact is that Jack, even in the state he's in, all he wants to do is I can make Sam and Dean happy. They'll be happy about this. Okay, I'll do it. So basically, one by one, she's having him strike down heretics. That author who is an atheist who wrote about God in heaven turned into salt. The lady opened up the ground underneath her to basically have it swallow her whole. Another dude had cuts open in his body and worms coming out of it, basically eating his flesh. So all kinds of mess stuff, all because Duma, like I said, is going super Old Testament of just kind of all wrath and all that, which when it came time to it, she also did an interesting thing where it's oh yeah, Jack make angels. That's the whole thing. That's what I thought the Michael storyline was going to be, because it's like they wanted Lucifer to make angels last season, but he couldn't because he didn't know how. The only person who could make them was God. So Jack isn't outright able to make angels, but apparently he can turn the souls of humans into angels, which is interesting. I guess you still need a body. I wonder, because I was about to say, like, if he went into someone's heaven and just took their soul, could he make them into an angel? Could he make Mary? Could he bring Mary back that way potentially by just grabbing her soul and turning her into an angel? You probably need a body, just because like angels have to be in an actual vessel, so it probably wouldn't work just using their outright soul, because that might end up burning away their soul, something like that. But that was interesting. I was like, wait, can he do that? I love that he ends up doing it, listening to people's prayers and stuff like that, because it's almost like he's the new God, but obviously Duma's kind of playing that role, and, Jack is kind of her instrument, which is so interesting considering the fact is Lucifer was all in his head being like, oh, the fact of the matter is, I'm as real as it gets because I'm in your DNA. I'm in your blood. Like, the fact of the matter is, you are me. And that was something Bobby was saying, like, without all of this, who is he? At the end of the day, he's Lucifer's kid, and that side of him is what's more prevalent now, especially because he doesn't have a soul. It's like, hey, I like the kid. Hell, we even fought together. But the fact of the matter is, he did this to Mary. He's a monster. Like, we can't trust him. I mean, and that's the sad thing is, Jack still wants to do good. He might not be able to tell what's right and what's wrong. He's kind of gray area now. He's literally neutral, not knowing what's right and what's wrong, no moral scale, like no soul to kind of balance him out. But it's like, if the time, like, if guided, I think he could be put on a path to do right. He would just, like Cassiel was going for, he needs guidance. But for Duma, she's like, because you have Cassiel being like, the way you're manipulating Jack, you're taking heaven's mercy from it. And Duma had to be like, you know better than anyone, Cassiel, that heaven had no mercy. But for her, it's like, oh, I'm doing this, like, I'm restoring, heaven to its glory, no one else is kind of doing this. Even threatening to ruin Mama and Papa Winchester's heaven, which is interesting, because I didn't realize he was in heaven. When did that happen? I don't remember, because the last time I remember was like he went to hell because that was a whole deal about saving Dean back in the beginning of season 2. I don't remember. Maybe things, I don't know. That's why I just don't remember. I know Bobby went to heaven eventually. Well, didn't he get kicked out at one point in time, even though he got put in heaven? I think so. Well, they were, like, he helped out the Winchesters at one point in time, so his heaven kind of got threatened, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, but I don't remember Papa Winchester getting to heaven, so that was just kind of interesting. But the fact is, she's like, oh, I'll just snap it and make it go away if you try and interfere with this, which Cassiel proceeded to stab and kill Duma, which I'm kind of bummed about, but I'm like, oh, just because I was like, Erica Sarah. It's just like, Joe. Which is interesting just because, like, that's the first role I ever got associated with her as Joe from Eureka. Always in the back of my mind then comes, like, her as Rebecca / Allie from the 100, which, obviously it's also on the CW. Me going on a tangent, so I do apologize. But it is it makes you wonder, does that mean, like, Naomi will get released and she'll be in heaven? Now, maybe she can potentially help out, find a solution to the situation. I don't know. Which is also interesting when you think about it, too, because it's like, let's not forget, there are literally less than a dozen. We are literally in the single digits of angels. Well, never mind, we did bump it up because Jack did make some more this episode, so there's that. But obviously with everything that's going on, like, Sam and Dean come down to the conclusion of, like, well, what's the best way to handle this, especially because Jack is being manipulated by heaven. Let's use the box. I figured it would come down to this. I thought it would probably be a situation where Jack might put himself in there willingly, but Dean is like, yeah, this is the only option. Jack, he'll go in here willingly. He's like, will he really? It's like, yeah, if we tell him we're trying to find a spell, we're working on a spell that can fix his soul. And it's like, is there such a thing? We know there's no such a thing, but Jack doesn't know that. It's like, oh, so you want to lie to him, which, you lied to him before. That didn't necessarily work out, like literally a couple episodes ago. If you had probably told him ahead of time, like, you were worried about his condition, maybe things would have changed. But obviously, like, everything with the kids that he was hanging around, like, obviously he didn't have his soul. He was kind of getting consumed by his powers and stuff like that. So there's that. Obviously, Sam has the biggest reluctancy about this situation, but even him, it's kind of like they're out of options. There's no other choice. So they, in the end, call upon Jack, and Jack is obviously like, oh yeah, the accident. And they're like, the accident. It's like, with Mary, it's like, oh, so that you can tell that's pissing Dean off even more, of like, oh, you're referring to what you did to our mom, you killed her. The fact is that he's phrasing it like that. He's like, I regret it, but he's not like, you can tell he's not really being sincere about it, because like he says I regret it, but he's only saying that because he remembers what it's like to regret, so he doesn't feel anything. Once again, it's just a complicated nature of a human soul. Like, being going from a human is one thing to kind of suss out, but Jack being an angel, there being a whole bunch of other mojo associated with him, probably makes it hard to really determine where he stands on everything. Like I said, he's just neutral. He's not naturally bad, like, because of the Lucifer side of him. He's just young and naive. Once again, he's a child with no morals. He's a neutral child with ideas of what's right, and it's like, oh, this is the merciful thing to do, and like he's kind of being pointed in a direction. He's literally a nuclear weapon with the mind of a child, essentially. He always has been. And so Jack is willing to listen because he's like, oh, the Winchesters are going to forgive me. The point I was getting to that I kind of lost track of, obviously, it's like, I just wanted things to stop. Obviously, Mary kept bringing up the whole no singing thing. He's like, oh, so it's her fault? He's like, no, it was me. But the fact is, he's just like, I just want things to stop, and things happen like that. It's like, like I said, it wasn't like a sincere apology, because he doesn't know how to feel bad about it anymore. He remembers that he's supposed to feel bad about it, but he can't bring up those emotions because he doesn't feel it anymore. But both of them, Sam in particular, was able to kind of convince him, because obviously you can tell Dean was kind of biting his teeth because it was pissing him off. You can tell it kind of hit Sam in the wrong way, but I think it just proved more into Sam's mind of like, yeah, Jack isn't the same person. The fact is he's responding like this, that he isn't just being straight up apologetic. I mean, it's sad thing, because even in Jack's mind, it's like, no, they'll forgive me. I mean, they made mistakes before, which, yes, the Winchesters have made mistakes. They've gone above and beyond and created a lot of terrible situations, for each other. I mean, when it's all said and done, they lock Jack in there because, like I said, he gets in there willingly, because more so than anything, he thinks like, oh, because he wants things to go back to the way they were. He thinks like, oh, we'd be the family again. I'll have my family back and it'll be all okay. And even when it's all said and done, Sam still doesn't feel right about it. So are we going to leave him in there forever? And you even have Jack being like, Sam, Dean, are you still there? You can tell he's kind of scared, which is interesting, because let's not forget, Dean literally had a nightmare about being trapped in there. And now it's like you're putting Jack through that. But because he's kind of, yes, he'll justify it by being like, oh yeah, I'm doing this for the sake of the world, which, yes, there's that. But it's more so because it's like, you're pissed at him because of what happened to Mary. I get it, but it's almost like, don't front. That's what's really pissing you off about the situation. You can say it's for this and that, but that's really your ulterior motive. It's revenge, because you can't kill Jack, even though you wanted to kill Jack and you couldn't in the past. But then there's a whole thing of like, let's not forget, it's like you looked at Jack kind of like as a son, the time he was spending with Jack. And he was almost like a surrogate son, almost, obviously a brother to him. And it's like the whole episode they had together, it's almost like none of that mattered anymore, because he has blinders on, because he's so pissed because of Mary. And was it his fault? No. Because the sad thing is, and even Duma kind of was like, oh, it's ironic that basically putting himself in this position happened because he was trying to do an act of goodness. It's like, once again, he saved all of you. He killed Michael. You even both admitted last episode, we kind of saw the signs, but we kind of ignored it because it was Jack, everyone kind of admitted that, and it's just sad that, because even Sam is like, he's just sad that things playing out this way, but it's like, oh, things are always going to play out this way. It was a long shot, which is like, you say that now, Dean, but you believed in this long shot. You didn't think like things would play out like this. You thought Jack would do good for the world because he was good. He was a good hunter. He was a good kid. And even Sam's like, but the fact of the matter is, we always do that. We always go beyond and do the impossible. And so, like, why can't we do it this time? And then Castiel comes and it's like, wait, you locked him up? The fact is that you're manipulating him like Duma. It shows that you're not on the right side of this situation. And so for Dean, obviously, it comes out of like what he did to Mom. After what he did, he needs to be locked up. Once again, that shows you that that's your main moment. But obviously, because Sam is the most one on the fence about the situation. You have Dean being he needs to be locked up. Castiel being like, no, he doesn't. He needs to be, we need to guide him and do the right thing. And Sam is literally in the middle on this topic. So, and the sad thing is, Jack has, Lucifer in his head telling him it's this and that. Like, it's like his angelic side kind of eating away at like that human mind. Once again, he's a child, so You know, he knows what he did was wrong and his conscience is trying to eat away. I guess it's his conscious way of kind of compensate for the fact that he no longer feels. It's his brain of trying to rationalize everything. So it manifests itself as that part of him. Like maybe it's a part of his powers. Maybe it's because of the whole killing Nick thing. Maybe it's because Nick tried to bring back Lucifer. In that moment, maybe a piece of Lucifer latched on. Maybe this really is the real Lucifer and that he's somewhere in Jack's head going to end up possessing his body. I feel like that might be the direction we might end up going with this. I don't know. But he's definitely pushing Jack's buttons. Like you could just, obviously Jack is just straight up losing his mind, but maybe it's not just losing his mind. Maybe there's more to it. Maybe, I mean, to be fair, Lucifer popped up after he had already killed Mary, so you can't make the argument like, oh, maybe, you know, Lucifer was controlling him or something like that. It's like, no. I still feel like we're not completely done with that whole Lucifer situation. Even with Nick dead, the whole Lucifer trying to get out of the empty situation. I'm sure the empty doesn't appreciate that. But once again, there's a whole conversation of Lucifer's awake in the empty. Is he hiding his being awake from the empty? Because Castiel being awake pissed him off. Maybe just because it's an archangel, you would think that might be worse, but maybe it's the same, or maybe it's different. I don't know. In the sense of like, maybe because he's an archangel, you don't feel it. I'm just surprised that Empty hasn't really worried about it. But to be fair, I guess it's focused on the whole Castiel situation, waiting for its moment to strike. So obviously the box didn't hold Jack, which, am I surprised? No, I figured it wouldn't, because I was like, yeah, it's meant to hold an archangel, which as a Nephilims become stronger than the angels that are their parents. One of his parents is a archangel, meaning he's stronger than an archangel, so of course it wouldn't hold him. And it's so sinister when you see like the smoke and you just see that like shadowy like outline of Jack and you see those glowing yellow eyes. It's like, ooh, Jack has never looked scarier and more menacing. It's like, jeez. It's going to be crazy to see what the next episode has in store for us, especially because the next episode is the season finale. Turns out this season was actually short. I didn't know going into this, because most seasons are typically like 22, 23 episodes, something like that. The show's only ever had one short season that was like 16 episodes, and that was season 3, because that was around the time of the writers strike in like 2008. But it's just kind of interesting. I'm so curious to see how this all ends up playing out, because like that box was the last option. There's actually, well, I don't know if they'll ever circle back to that. Remember there was those things that Asmodeus was trying to get Jack to summon? Like those things that even Lucifer was scared of, that Asmodeus was like, I'm gonna do it anyway, but they never got summoned. Like, I forgot what they were called. It was like, wasn't that from last season, or was that before? No, that wasn't. Yeah, that was last season. Yes, definitely. So I'm wondering, will that kind of play any role in that? Which also, I'll point out too, we have not dealt with Hell at all. Like, subsequently, since Crowley died, like, Hell hasn't really played that big of a role. Well, Asmodeus took over, but subsequently, Hell hasn't been an issue. I mean, I think the biggest focus, obviously, this season has been Heaven in the condition that it's in. But regardless, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what goes down next episode, because everyone's going to be gunning at Jack with everything they got. I think Castiel is going to be one of the few people trying to save him. I think he will try to get Naomi's help for it. But whether he'll be able to, maybe he will be able to, and that's what's going to make the Empty grab him. I have no idea how this is going to play out. Maybe God will step up and be the one to fix all of this. Because I think, like, Sam's thinking of, like, that we can find another way. It's like, they've done it multiple times. Your mom came back in an impossible way. She came back because of God's sister. The mark of Cain. You dealt with that situation. You've killed death. You've beaten death multiple times. You've died and come back multiple times. That led to the whole Billy situation, which maybe Billy will be the key to figuring this all out. You would think that she would interfere at this point in time, because the balance to everything is at stake, because Jack, the last thing Jack had to tie himself down to all of this was Castiel and the Winchesters, and the last ties to his humanity. With that gone, he realizes now, like, oh, I can't trust anyone. All I have is myself. So he'll be making a lot of decisions, on his own. So what that entails, like I said, we'll have to wait and see. I'm excited to see what the season finale has in store for us. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good